And for our project, picking a data set was kind of difficult. Our interests, as we found, lied in like a lot of places, from countries to books to economics to table games. So ultimately, we decided to go with kind of middle ground, doing video game sales analysis. It has regional sales from North America, Europe, Japan, other and global, and some information about each game. We have the name, rank, platform, year it was released, genre, and publisher. So unfortunately, Estefanny was unable to make it to class today. So I'll be speaking on behalf of him and for the graphs that he was in charge of. So with that said, let's get into it. Estefanny was in charge of this scatter matrix of the different regions of sales against each other. I just zoom out. So we talked about some different linear relationships, and it seems that if we draw your attention to the top right, we can see a pretty strong line that we can draw through these points for NA sales and global sales. And so perhaps we concluded that North America is the biggest contributor to global video game sales. And then also Estefanny made some histograms for us with a lovely drop-down menu for all these regions. And then they all look kind of the same, but I think the average sales that we had was between, I can zoom in here, average was probably around like 0.2, 0.3 in millions, of course. And so I'll pass this off to Hayden, and he'll talk about some popular video games.
So I did my chart on the top 25 games from each region and their sales. So if we look at North America, we can see that by far the most popular game is Wii Sports, along with Europe as well. But in Japan, Pokemon is actually by far the most popular, with 3 Pokemon games being in the top 5. And then in the other regions category, is actually the only chart to have Grand Theft Auto be #1, a non-Nintendo game be #1. And globally, Wii Sports is double the #2 game with over 80 million sales, with Super Mario Brothers being second with about 40 million.
Yeah. And Estefanny also created this colorful pie chart, sorry, of popular consoles. And so we can see, we have our Nintendo DS, some PlayStations, Wii, and then also some more outdated consoles, PS4. I think this was just the timing of the data set, but yeah, we definitely some well-known names in the top like 5. And then I'll pass it to Hayden to talk about some platform sales. Oh, sorry, Haokang. Yeah. That's my bad.
Yeah, so you can see the chart of the platform here, that the y-axis will be the sale in million and the x-axis will be the platform. And this is showing as increasing. So you can see PCFX have near to 0 global sales, and you can see Game Boy and Nintendo have approximately, how much is that? 2.5 and 2.6 sales. And if we look down, we can see that NA and Japan's have higher sales on NES, but on Game Boys, it's more popular in EUs. So that kind of draws to a conclusion here that NES is more popular in NA and Japan's, while Game Boys and only in EU are popular. So I'm gonna pass down.
So here we have a line chart on the yearly video game sales from the past few decades. So from the line chart, you can see that there have been a couple of significant spikes and drops in sales, especially from the mid-1980s to around the early 1990s. And you can also see that from around 1996, video game sales have been pretty steady before dropping a bit at around 2017. And then below that, there's a bar graph of popular video game genres based off of their global sales. So looking at the bar graph, you can see that platform games, shooter games, and role-playing games are the more popular genres since they have a higher average in global sales compared to the other genres.
So for these bar charts, I was using the top 4 popular genres in Amanda's graph. So as we can see, it's platform, shooter, role-playing, and racing. So in these graphs, we see in the shooter platform how there's kind of 2 games that are behind a game that looks really low. And because that is due to these games being sold on multiple platforms. So because of that, as we can see in the chart, their sales are kind of doubled because of the revenue they made on those 2 consoles. And then we can also see in the shooter how there isn't a big gap between the top 2 games. And in all the other genres, you can see about a significant great gap between the top 2. Yeah, so.
Yeah, and that just about rounds it up. Down here is just kind of put it in words in a paragraph format of our whole presentation.